All right. Welcome to episode 2 of All's I'm Saying. I'm Zeus. We got Tom here, Jack, and Michael. Darcy's missing this week. He is out sick with potentially the
HIV.
coronavirus.
Oh,
COVID.
So we'll see. We'll see how he's doing. I think he's going to be okay. He's about 2 weeks into it, and he's says he's feeling rough, headache, muscle aches, all that stuff. Um, Hopefully he's okay. I'll keep you guys posted.
Get better, Darcy.
Yep.
yeah,
So
absolutely.
this week, I had just something I want to throw out there and see what everybody thought. I've grown weary of just everything in society right now. The tribalism that we have going on, and I just wanted to toss out there that we need to learn to be more complex as a society. It's all black and white. There's no middle. I think we need a much more middle oriented society where it's not abortion bad, pro life good. We have to break things down to more. We can't paint with broad picture or broad strokes. We have to be more complicated. Sometimes I think we're even misled by making things just. What MSNBC is, everything is Democratic. Fox News, everything is Republican. You can't go to a source and just get unbiased information, and think for yourself. And I think, honestly, society is becoming lazy in that they prefer that on some level. I'll go where they say things I like because I can't deal with being offended by your views. That's the other thing. Let's stop being so damn offended about everything. So I mean, that's where I'm going. Now, what are you guys' thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think people aren't complex. I mean, people are still complex, but the modes that we interact with each other are not complex at
The
all.
platforms.
I mean, the stereotypical, old 140 character Twitter, you're right? Everyone's already got sound bites. No one has time to delve into it. It's not that there's not people who are complex or thinking things in a complex way. It's that they're not given any respect or any forum. So everything is
Dumbed
chewed. I
down.
mean, news is entertainment, and things are done for ratings. They're not done to inform. I mean, if you
It's
turn
all
on
about selling milk and bread.
and if you turn on any quote unquote news program, I can't even call it news. I mean, media, whatever. They're
State-run
not
media.
they're not there to inform you. They're there to deliver their narrative to get you to think a certain way. They're not there to inform. It's not a passive thing. It's not reading a book or having a conversation. They are trying to drive a point home, and that has shifted. I mean, in our lifetime, at least the severity of it. But I don't think it's. I mean, to your point, Zeus, I'm not negative on the fact that, like, people. It's that people are too simple now. I mean, there's always those people, but it's just the way we interact with each other is horrible. I mean, the whole promise of Facebook was to, like, bring people closer together, and all it did was drive people further apart because they're putting up this false front, right? And everyone's like looking. Anytime you look on Facebook, you're looking at the best face everyone's putting forward or trying to. It's unrealistic. It's unreal.
Yeah, we're all filters and
Yeah.
parties, tribes. Like I said, this tribalism, and it's not just down to like Republican or Democrat. It's everything. It's uh, the type of places you go. fashion, yeah. It's keeping up with the Kardashians versus the Osbournes. You know what I mean? It's like we latch onto things that we find appealing and then we try and emulate it. Not now. I'm not saying me myself, and I don't. I think you guys are probably much the same. I'm much more eclectic. I like I like punk, but I also like Pink Floyd. You know what I mean? But in that's like another one. It's like you're either in the rap game or you like rock and roll. And if you like rock and roll, you have to have long hair and a goatee. If you like rap, you got to have a gold grill. It gets too much for me. I like everything. It's maybe it's the millennial aspect of things of just give me everything easy. I don't want to think too much. Just tell me what I like. But
There's definitely been a shift, like Mike said. If we're all old enough to remember back in the 80s, there's somebody that passed away today was Rush Limbaugh. And back then, people could talk, you could converse from both sides. Ronald Reagan could deal with Tip O'Neill, and they could be cordial, and they'd fight over issues, but then they could go out for dinner or whatever. And everything today, it's an us and a them. It's always they. We like this, they don't want us to do this. It's such a toxic relationship now. It's like a bad personal relationship where you're just yelling at each other back and forth. That's what it's kind of devolved into.
Yeah, I agree. And I've often said this. I know I've talked to Mike about this, but I feel like with BLM, George Floyd, when he died, if anybody remembers, the first couple of days after that, it was like white people, black people in the crowds holding hands. It was very much reminiscent of like a candlelight vigil. People were being kind and they were talking about the atrocity. And we don't have to get into the whole George Floyd portion of it. But then all of a sudden, fingers started getting pointed left and to one side or the other, and I felt like it was so visceral for me. I felt like it was no pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. It was like the wizard up there was getting us to look at each other, look to the left or the right, rather than where the problem comes from, which is from the authority to a certain degree. I'm not getting conspiratorial, but what I'm saying is that all of a sudden it turned into riots and anger and people killing their neighbors. You know what I mean? And it just felt so, since we're going to be talking about conspiracies later, it felt so choreographed. And I've talked about this before with people that I don't think there are conspiracies. I think unless you talk aliens, and even that maybe not a conspiracy, but I think things are choreographed. So we know somebody's gonna get killed by a cop, black guy, Asian guy, white guy, whatever. But we know that's going to happen again. So in people with more money and bigger brains than ours can plan for those things. You know what I mean? So instead of creating it, you plan for it and choreograph how it works out. We know certain reactions will come from certain things. Throw out a few people saying that bricks were being left on corners, and all of a sudden it's, a conspiracy. It's Antifa or...
Wait, you don't believe that?
Nope, not at all.
Wow. All right, well...
I believe construction goes on in every city, and there's a good possibility that there may be bricks at some places.
That's true. I'll give you that.
So that one's kind of nonsense.
I don't know. Well, that's a judgment call, Zeus, but...
Okay, here's my judgment, and I'll just give you a for instance.
It's not...
Hold on. Everyone has cell phones with cameras.
Yeah.
Nobody got video of some shady people planting bricks on a random corner.
Depends where you look.
All right. Oh, I don't have the dark net, so I'm gonna have to
I don't even know. To me, the dark net is like fishnets that girls wear. I don't know anything about
it. I don't believe it. I'd have to see.
It went both ways, though. Because first they'd say, okay, Antifa, George Soros is planting bricks for Antifa to use, and then the BLM would come back and say, well, the KKK is planting those bricks because they want us to tear down our own neighborhood.
Right.
So it was kind of like everybody was accusing everybody else of planting the bricks. It was ridiculous.
Exactly.
But to the complexity thing I'm talking about.
But wait, Zeus, if we're talking about a conspiracy theory, if we're going there, that's cool. But you know, everybody has a theory.
Yeah. But what I'm saying is,
I think he's saying it was an opportunity, not necessarily a conspiracy.
It was choreographed. I don't believe
it was.
When I'm saying choreographed, I'm saying they just let things happen. They kind of just sit in the background and say, here's where we put our input. But let's use the Occam's razor theory.
Yeah.
We are familiar?
Yeah.
Yes.
The shortest and fastest solution is quite often the right one. Right. It's unlikely that people were planting bricks on street corners, for instance. I'm just saying, for instance.
Okay, let's assume you're right. It's a conspiracy by right-wing nuts or whatever. Yeah. Or like Tom said, there was an equal conspiracy by left-wing nuts that said it was all the case. You know, the raving hordes of white supremacists that are destroying our cities. I mean, they're both pretty far out there, as far as I know.
But that's what I'm getting at. So back to the us them. I think that we got manipulated, and they said, hey, but look at those guys to the right of you. Don't look at us. Don't look at the ones that are managing all this. Pay attention to those people that you've had problems with for so long in the past and continue to have problems with them.
Right.
I personally got no issue with black, white, Muslim, Jew, whatever. Right. I was going to say I like everybody. I like to be contrarian and say that I hate everybody equally until they prove me wrong. Exactly. But really, I prefer to think that nobody's born bad and that everybody deserves to have their opinion short of, NAMBLA or something like that.
Yeah. Come on now. No.
Shocker.
No, I mean,
everyone's got their thing.
The only constitutionally unprotected speech is, that you have libel, you have slander, you have threat to commit violence, right? You also have inciting to violence. Like, okay, let's all
fire in a theater.
Let's all, right? Because you're putting people in danger.
Right.
And the argument for not riding your motorcycle without a helmet is, okay, you want to be an asshole, that's fine, but you're going to cause traffic, you're going to cause death, you're going to cause mayhem, you're going to get the EMTs out there, they're going to have to block streets, cops are going to be where they shouldn't be.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, it's just reckless behavior, and that's also sort of prohibited, rightfully so. It's dumb. You want to smoke weed in your house? Smoke weed in your house. You know what I mean? If you light it on fire, I hope you have insurance.
Hey, I got an idea. If you're listening to a radio show and they say something that you don't like, don't get rid of their livelihood. Turn it off.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
That's what I'm saying. People don't communicate. It's all about look. What we're seeing. Yeah.
Click.
I'm sorry.
Clicks.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and it's power, man. It's power. You can't, if everyone's getting along really well, it's very hard for people who are getting along to be controlled. But if you can divide them up, point them at each other and put them against each other, it gets very easy to control it. And it's totally what we're experiencing. I mean, here's the thing. Try not looking at any media for a week. You'll be a lot happier.
Yeah.
I don't watch the news.
Anytime people say stuff like,
except for this show.
Watch the show.
But it's like when people say, it's also like definitions. We're being bombarded with propaganda that is so intense and so thorough through multiple channels that, for people who are casually paying attention to things, they just pick up this phraseology. Like, the one that's very curious to me these days is the whole like white supremacy thing. So the only time I hear about white supremacy is through the media. If I'm walking around my neighborhood, grocery store, at work, and no one's ever talking about white supremacy. No, there's no one marching. This isn't Skokie, Illinois in the 80s, right? I mean, it's like there's a white supremacist behind every tree. But if you look on media, I mean, that's what you would think. But if you're walking around in real life, it's like, what are these people talking about? It's crazy.
And Mike, to that point, because all you guys said some shit that's worth, I'd like to weigh in on, but on that note, like just in today's American society, and probably globally, most free places, if not all of them, if Zeus and I are sitting in a pub by ourselves, two white dudes, one looks like Zeus, no offense, and
handsome as fuck.
And one, yeah, no, I mean, you look like a white supremacist. That's okay.
Yeah.
And one of us just throws out casual racial charged language, like, oh, all the N-words suck, or all they do is this, they don't know how to work, or whatever. We're getting thrown out, and we're probably getting our asses kicked mostly by white people. I mean, that's just one thing. I don't want to go off on that because I want the show to continue, and we're not racist, obviously, but
correct.
You can flip that on its side. All white people are bigoted, racist.
And it would probably fly.
A couple of black dudes to say that at a bar, a lot of guys are going to be like, "What the fuck are you talking about? You're an ignorant person." At least I'd like to believe that, and I do believe that. I mean, Jesus Christ, of course they do. And the media, like Michael was talking about earlier, like, where does the sensationalism come from? Obviously, money talks, advertising sells. And I remember, guys, when we were kids, like way pre fucking Columbine, there was a story, like when we first had broadcast news at night, and that was the thing people watched. Suddenly we had extra channels, right? Like, if I want to watch Matlock again, no. And a little girl fell in a well. You guys remember that?
Yep.
Okay, so one little girl in some
Baby Jessica.
Yeah, okay, baby Jessica falls in a well. Anybody know the town or how she fell? I don't.
Yeah, it was in Texas.
Okay, someplace in Texas, a little girl fell down a well. I would think where there are wells and little girls and adults and drunk people probably fall in wells a whole lot. But she was a little girl. They showed her picture. Her parents were crying. You had all the cops out there and all the and it became like a hand-wringing thing, like John Bonet with the fucking the
entertainment.
Well, right. And so they want to keep you watching. And one network is just, they call themselves the cable news network, and they're on in every airport, every bus stop, every interstate stop, what do they call it? Gas and Gulf, or fucking Food and Fuel. And, if you're, God forbid, you're in an airport and your flight's being repaired, nowadays you have the phone too, right? So you're looking at the phone like a zombie, and you're just being fed this stuff. And like Michael, I think you said, there's like little catching phrases. And you say something, you tell it, it's like Goebbels. If you tell a big enough lie enough times, it becomes the truth. And that goes to tribalism. It's like divide and conquer, like Mike said. People want to belong to something. And nowadays, when we're all so isolated, we fucking love it. That's why we're doing the podcast. To talk to friends, have people fucking tell us what they think. And everybody wants to belong. And would you rather be in a tribe, or would you rather be the kid in 8th grade with the mullet and the biker jacket, who also has 4 other nerds that, like Iron Maiden, that's his little family, right? So I think we're always like that. We want like an extension to our family. And unfortunately, it turns into violence. I mean, it's worth talking about this because it's fucking real and it's awesome. And we have, I don't know how old your kids are. My oldest will be 21. My second kid will be 18. Or rather, no, he'll be 19. Because he's one of those, like, the wrong time of year.
Jeez. Yeah, I held him when he was a baby.
Yeah, both of them, right? And then there's 2 more, 5 years down the road. And it's frightening. And it's just scary. And now with the internet, you go on there and you chuck a moon or you make a disparaging comment that would have been an animal in the 70s, and you like have this Scarlet Letter on it.
Yeah.
Why?
It's totally controlled. It's like, it's the whole thing. And I touched on this. I think I touched on this a little bit last week, but this sort of like, as Americans, I mean, it's all over the world, but we do have this like kind of Puritan tradition, this little like stream of Puritanism that goes through our culture a little bit. And a lot of the power of this cancel culture is that people care. Like, so part of the reason people get canceled is there's all these people that are just waiting to be like, nah, 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 like, you know, I'm going to pounce on you for this. People have these tweets or these things that they did like 20 years ago pop up and they lose their job. It's like, my whole thing is like, I don't give a fuck if someone did something stupid 20 years ago. Apparently a lot of people do. But if people just didn't give a shit about it, then it loses its power, right? I mean, it's all manipulation. The reason why this cancel culture thing exists is they want to shut people up. It is about power. It is power, power, power. And they do not want people stepping out of line. I don't care where you are in the political spectrum. I'm just saying.
I don't disagree with that at all.
Yeah.
It's also, Michael, it's also very selective.
Yeah.
Like if you're the new flavor of the month and you got a hit record out, then you're like the new fucking Notorious B.I.G. or the new fucking I don't know, Bob Seger, right? I mean, sorry, the beard. I called the Bob Seger.
Chris Christopherson.
Okay, yeah. Hey, he was a poet. He was a poet and a good actor.
Yeah.
But let's say you got a guy who did hard time for assaulting a pregnant woman with a handgun, and he did 10 years for it. And then he gets out, and for whatever reason, there's money in him. Suddenly, not only do we not talk about what he did 10 years ago, we're not allowed to.
Mm-hmm.
Because then you're an unforgiving piece of garbage, you know? And if you're a different race from that person, then you know what you are. Or if you're a different gender from that person, you know what you are. So it's really kind of like, it's got to be power, because money is power. Trying to market a certain thing. Don't spoil the apple cart.
What are they after? I mean, what is the end game? What are they collecting the power to do?
Money.
Just make money?
Control of markets, control of governments. I mean, it can, you know, controlling a population, especially one like us, is not necessary. I mean, they found a way to do it.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that's for sure.
You might argue, Michael, it's easier to do.
Yeah, now it is. Technology makes it easy.
It makes it easier, as opposed to like a free country. You get the right snake in the garden, you can do it. I mean, if you're communist China, propaganda is not your only tool. You know what I mean? There's other things you can do. See COVID. Mm-hmm. And I don't mean it was on purpose. I mean, like, they were literally pulling people out of their apartments and throwing them in vans. Like, that video exists. Like, it's not fucking fake.
I mean, what about all the people that were like dying in the streets? Like, that never happened here.
I looked that up, Mike, because we talked about it last week, and that was not true. There was like some kind of a promotional video.
For what?
From Germany from years before, and that was getting played on the internet, but nobody was dropping dead at the bus stops.
Good.
Yeah. I never saw that. I never saw the dropping dead on the street thing, except for like Italy. You know?
No, it didn't really happen. People were attributing it to Italy and China, but
it
wasn't real.
No, I don't remember I remember seeing the old ladies getting pulled out and thrown in vans and bed sheets. Like that was China. I mean, like, we know that, like, the landscape.
I can believe anything with China.
Yeah, no, me too.
And I've talked about this with Zeus a long time ago, but like Ted Kaczynski, like his little crazy manifesto that he did.
It's like a must read for any.
I know. Where it's like, you know, basically the crux of it, for those that haven't read it, is, you know, technology is always presented as a choice, and then it eventually becomes mandatory. So
right.
I always use the easy pass analogy with that, where it's a choice, but now, you know, you can't cross the Bay Bridge unless you have an easy pass. But like, so social media and our media and just the internet and all that in general, all this infrastructure was built. So you consider it like a road. Hey, everyone, you can drive on my road. I'm going to put roads going to everyone's house. It's totally free. Do what you want. And once everyone's using the roads and they've abandoned all other methods of travel, now the speed limits start getting reduced. Now you can only drive during certain times. Now that's exactly what's happened with the internet. They've got all the market share. I mean, I just saw this today. 70% of all digital purchases are with 3 companies: Facebook, Google, and Amazon.
Yeah.
70% of every dollar spent or used in the digital marketplace goes to one of 3 companies. That's just like astonishing.
Well, wait a minute. I got a scarier one too. Those same 3 companies plus Facebook and Twitter literally control information.
Yeah.
That to me is like my Orwell antenna went up when I started to see fact checks and when I started to just see stuff pulled down.
Yeah.
And then I was like, why do we have Section 230 protections for these platforms again? Why?
Right.
And
the
why?
Hunter Biden story.
Well, that was the New York Post too. I mean, say what you want about the Post. They're like the oldest fucking newspaper in the country, and they're one of the most circulated globally. And they buried it. And Twitter even said, F you, if you retract it and never mention it again, we will allow you to be on our constitutionally protected platform, not publication.
But there's not even discussion. Like there was a guy in California.
That was the most convenient timing ever.
Yeah.
He said that kids should go back to school, and he got fired from his job just for saying that kids should go back to school. And this was like December, I think. And now, the governors wants to send them back to school. I mean, where's that guy at though? I mean, did he get his job back?
Don't even get me started. If we do a COVID show, I will let loose the Kraken, but I that's just like a little rip. That's like a little ripple and a much bigger.
What's the control of information is really not necessarily COVID, but if you say something that Twitter doesn't want you to say,
2020 was a fucking eye opener.
Yeah,
it really was.
I mean, you look at the number, and you guys probably know this, but you have Disney controls ABC, Hulu, obviously, ESPN. You've got Comcast that owns NBC. You've got AT&T that owns CNN. You got Bezos, who's one of the most wealthy people in the world, owns the Washington Post. I mean, there's like 6 companies that control 95% of everything you see.
Yeah. There's too much. There's a lot of monopolies that need to be broken up, I think.
And it's like, I use the analogy like Coca-Cola. So Coca-Cola is one of the highest, well, I don't know if they still are, but one of the highest purchasers of advertising in the world. And it's like, everyone knows what Coca-Cola is, right? People like it, they don't like it. So why are they still advertising? It's like